Hello everyone and welcome to episode 13 of the Memphis Grizzlies MyGM. And in this video we're going to recap the championship and the whole offseason. As you guys know, in the previous video, the Memphis Grizzlies were eliminated by the Oklahoma City Thunder in a 6-game series. Now we're in the championship game where OKC takes game 1 with a 111-91 victory. As we go through and recap the games, I want to just give my quick thoughts and input on how this season went so far. And I touched on it briefly last episode, but this is a much more in-depth review of this season and how this series is going. So starting off with this series, I'm glad I started it. You know, I've been wanting to do this for a while. But this series went pretty well for me. You know, we played all 82 games, 12-minute quarters, and we made it to the Western Conference Finals where we were eliminated in 6 games against the OKC Thunder. I still want to thank you guys for all the support, and just sticking with this series. These videos do take a lot of time to make, and that's why they've been so spread out far. I try to keep them to about every 2 weeks, but sometimes, you know, playing all those games, I have to play at least 10 games in 2 weeks, and I don't have the time for playing all those games in that time frame. So I try to play as many as I can and get these videos out as quickly as possible. But you know, editing these videos is always a joy to play, and you can see here that the OKC Thunder are now down 3-1 against the Toronto Raptors, and the Raptors just won that game 141-110. But getting back to my input and thoughts, it was a very good series to end off season 1, and we're going to still continue to do season 2. I mean, we're finished with the off season. I already played 1 game in the beginning of the new season, and I'm going to try and get that video or those 10 games out as quickly as possible. And you can see the OKC Thunder have taken game 5, and now it is a pivotal game 6 as it is an elimination game for the Oklahoma City Thunder. But you know, I'm gonna try and get these videos out more consistently because I have a bit more free time now and it's not a whole bunch I have to worry about. And you can see here game 6, there will be a game 7 now as OKC ties the series up 3-3. So it is a game deciding game 7 for the NBA championship this year. So just in a couple of moments, we're going to see who will be crowned the new 2018-2019 NBA champions. And I was trying to watch this game live. I didn't want to do simcast, or I just wanted to see the CPU versus CPU so we could see who would actually win. But we're going to simulate the game right now, and your NBA champions are the Toronto Raptors. So just like in real life, the Toronto Raptors win the NBA championship, and in the virtual world, NBA 2K, they win it as well. But this was done way before the Toronto Raptors won this series in real life. So I guess it's pretty realistic of a simulation we have here. So Kawhi Leonard, 7 games, 24 points, 6 rebounds, and about 5 assists per game. And the Raptors are your new NBA champions without Marc Gasol being on their team. I know that was one of the more important trades that the Raptors made during the real-life NBA season. But getting back to the series and a couple of my thoughts, I won't be doing the Madden series anymore. Madden is just not a fun game for me to play. I'm gonna wait on Madden 20. I'm gonna give that a lot more effort and energy. I really like with the production value I had in the Madden franchise series, and I want to carry that over into Madden 20. I want to make it bigger and better. So getting back onto the game now, we have a press conference, and a reporter asked me a bit of a ridiculous question, and I had to give him a bit of a snide remark or a little, you know, perky response. So that concludes season 1, and we're gonna have to review the budget here. And you can see this is some of my favorite things to do in 2K when the off season comes to an end. We can make changes to just about anything, finance, player staff, coaches staff. So as you can see here, we have finalized our budget. A lot of it's going to team operations and player payroll, and then promotion. I want to make sure that we max out promotion as well, because I always like running promotions during the regular NBA season. and we are currently level 18 in the MyGM world. So this is an off-season event schedule. We're going to start with the player retirements. We have Vince Carter, Dirk Nowitzki, Jason Terry, Nene, Richard Jefferson, Udonis Haslem, Heat lifer for life, Manu Ginobili, Spurs lifer, David West, Nick Collison, Tony Allen are just a couple guys to name. So this player retirement class was pretty good. A lot of these guys were starters in their younger careers, but now they have called it a quits. Hall of Fame inductees. It'll be Dirk Nowitzki and Vince Carter, both averaging over 15 points a game, and they are well worthy of being a Hall of Famer. And we have retired jerseys. Manu Ginobili and Dirk Nowitzki had their jersey number retired, 20 and 41. So I think that is another cool feature that 2K adds. Moving on, we're gonna get to the league changes now, and the owner Ben Parker wanted to run a couple of the potential rule changes that could take an effect. So I'm not gonna show you our conversation because we have a screen where it summarizes everything as to why or whether or not rules got approved or rejected. And you can see here that one of them were that players are not eligible for the draft once they reach 18. That one was rejected. Only one owner approved of it. Then we had the top 9 picks are done through the lotto. That one was rejected as well. Opposing team will enter a 1+1 bonus. So just like in college rules, I believe if you enter the bonus, you shoot 1 free throw, and if you make it, you shoot another. If you miss it, the other team has a chance to get the rebound and puts it the other way. So they wanted to change the number of fouls before a player foul out to 7. That was rejected as well. And the last one, which was a big no-no but almost got approved, needing 23 votes, but missing 2 votes. It was the odds of obtaining a top 3 pick are based on the team's final record. And I don't like this rule at all because it gives the team an incentive to, tank real hard and having a worst record because it won't be determined by the lottery. And speaking of the lottery, we are now at the lottery picks. Celtics had the number 1 chance from the Sacramento Kings pick with a 25% chance of getting that number 1 pick. So we have Nets picking 14. Then we have the Trailblazers, at 13. Hornets projected to go 12, and they do go 12. Moving on to pick number 11 now. It is the Clippers, and it will be the Clippers picking at pick number 11. Top 10 picks we are entering, and we are going to see how it will shape up. The Wizards will pick 10th in their projected spot. So everything is looking pretty on board, pretty steady so far. Magic picking 9th, didn't have too good of a season, and hopefully they could turn things around. The Atlanta Hawks, with a 2.9% chance of getting the number 1 pick, will pick 8th in the NBA draft. Suns projected to pick 7th, but is now taken by the Chicago Bulls. We have the Pelicans, who will pick 6th, and we are entering the top 5 draft picks. Nets will pick 5th in the NBA draft lottery, as well as they have that 14th pick overall. And then we have the Knicks projected to go 4th, but now they move up, and the Atlanta Hawks also have another pick, and they're going to be picking 4th. We have the Knicks projected to pick 3rd, but they move up again, and now it is the Phoenix Suns top 3 pick. Knicks projected 2nd, but they do not get it. And then the Knicks, will ultimately end up picking 1st, as the Celtics, with a 25% chance of having the number 1 overall pick, falls to the 2nd draft order. So a very interesting draft order, to say the least. And now we're going to move on to our staff sign-in. I didn't really make a lot of changes here, but I'm going to tell you guys straight off the bat, we did fire our chief financial officer. And you can see here, we're going to fire him cordially. No need to fire him bluntly or harsh. Maybe if it was that guy, Andrew Sanderson, we definitely would have fired him harshly. But Nathan Mason, just got to thank him for his work that he did for us. But there were other candidates out there who had better badges and could help with the finance, because where our profit loss is a huge negative margin, and I want to try and get that up to being at least close to a break-even point or even a positive profit loss. So one of the offers we have is Jacob West. He had all the badges we want, were about 2. He didn't really have any negative badges, so I don't have to worry about him affecting the other members on the staff. Both of them wanted to sign with us, but we could only end up signing 1, and so you can see here it's telling me that I can only sign 1, and we go with Noah Vincent. That was our first offer, so 4 years for about $2.4 million. And then we have our trainer giving us a heads up on some future draft prospects information. And then we move on to the pre-draft workout results. Nothing I'm too big of a fan of. I'm a guy who really likes to work through free agency. I don't really focus on like the incoming draft prospect, and the draft is not like an important thing for me. I'm more of getting players in the free agent market because I know what those guys could do. When you have draft prospects, it's a bit of a toss-up if you're not picking a lottery pick, and especially if you do pick a lottery pick, you there's still a possibility that that guy might not turn out to the way you want it to be. But there were a couple guys I was interested in, and hopefully when we get to the draft we could be able to draft them. But right now we're going to take a look at the transaction report right now. And so this is basically after we switched up our staffs, and you can see all these staff changes, and it's pretty cool that 2K have this. It's like a coaching carousel, I should say, just like an NCAA 14, but nothing really of interest here. A couple firing and hirings of the CFOs, assistant GMs moving to different places. But now we can get back to the draft prospect and our draft boards, and you can see that we have 3 guys on there: Sean Parker, Brandon Winnington, and it will be Chris Carlson was another guy we were looking at. So now we're moving on to the NBA draft. A big part for some people, while only a minority few a little part. And going number 1 is Hakeem Christopher, the clear consensus number 1 pick, and hopefully the New York Knicks could turn that into something useful with this prospect here. Should have a bright future. Celtics drafting number 2. They pick up Jim Wesley out of Miami, Florida, 6'3", 181 pounds. Regarded as one of the best point guards in the draft so far, and we're going to see how he turns out in the NBA. Known for his offense and his defense as well. 3rd pick, Chester Green, 6'10", power forward out of LaSalle, and he is definitely going to try and make his foot in the NBA. As we skip to our picking number 53, the Memphis Grizzlies are on the clock, and we have a chance to get the prospect we want. But unfortunately, since I don't really know how to work the draft, the guys I wanted were gone. As you can see, Sean Parker, Brandon Winnington, and Chris Carlson, they were guys that I really liked and really felt like they could fit the team and provide, meaningful impact right away. But we had to look to other places, and we're gonna draft Wes Kirkland, 67 overall, a 2-way guard. He has a total of 3 badges, and I think he could be a G League type player if we develop him properly. He could be a very good bench player for the Memphis Grizzlies. But with the 53rd pick, we go with 6'5", 198 pounds, a little skinny Wes Kirkland, shooting guard. And as Adam Silver says, that will mark the end of the first round, weirdly. But we move on to Deputy Commissioner Mark Tatum, and we are going to move on to Memphis Grizzlies' 2nd pick. The 3rd to last pick in the NBA draft goes to Niko Dabanovic out of Lithuania, 6'10", 210 pounds, the small forward. As you can see here, Lang Whitaker says there's not a lot of game tape on Niko, and we didn't really have a lot of game tape on him either. A lot of the prospects we wanted were gone by the time it was our time to draft, and so we just had to make do with what we had. And the draft is over now, and you can see the overall of the players and where these new draft prospects went. One of the more interesting character on this game is Tom Smith. Just the way he looks like a guy from the 80s, so I'm gonna be excited to play against the Clippers to see how funny looking this guy looked. So basically a recap of the NBA draft. I think it was a pretty good draft. As I said before, I'm not really a draft type guy. I like to make my work during the free agency in any sport: basketball, football, hockey, baseball. But I don't really play hockey or baseball, so I really like the free agency, and we're gonna have that coming up soon as we get through the second round draft recap. Mavericks pick BJ Lindsley, power forward, the last pick in the NBA draft. So now that's out of the way. We did accept Jakob Poeltl team option, so he's going to be on the team for another year, and I really like the way he played for us in the playoffs and in the regular season. So now we're on to free agency, and one of the main guys I wanted was Jonathan Simmons. I felt like his skill set and looking at his badges and attributes really did fit this team, and I think he could be a very good shooting guard for us. Only asking for 2 years, $14 million, so that's about $7 million a year, and to have him at that value as a starting shooting guard, I think it's pretty worthy to have him on the team, especially with the production we got from our starting shooting guard before, Wayne Selden. I didn't really like the amount of production he gave us. He was very limited, and this year I'm focusing on the offensive output. I want all the starting fives be with scores. Offered Jonathan Simmons a contract, and hopefully he accepts. Moving on to the next guy, we looked at Trevor Ariza. So we're not going to stick with Kyle Anderson at the 3 position because he cannot score on the offensive side of the ball. So Trevor Ariza is a perfect replacement for Kyle Anderson. But knowing the Memphis Grizzlies cap restriction with Michael Conley and Marc Gasol huge contracts, we don't really have a lot of room to make or to give out these contracts to the players we want. These are good signings for a team that have the space. I really like Jonathan Simmons and Trevor Ariza. I think they could be a very crucial part to the team, but we just have to see how the cap plays out, and want to keep the guys we have on the team already. So Trevor Ariza was offered a contract. Moving on to our next conference, we can't make any more negotiations for this day. I think we were only allowed to make 2, and this is the moratorium period, so this is just players saying that they're going to sign, so we have to wait till the real free agency start. But upcoming, we're going to take a look at the cap holes and cap restrictions, and that's going to be coming up very shortly. But we're going to take a look at the list of affordable small forwards that we have. And you know, this was a great feature that 2K has, making a difference between affordable and the general positions. So I know easily, okay, my cap space, I could sign this guy to a contract he's asking for. And Jermichael Green somehow was on the free agent market, so I'm going to try and offer him a contract, and I believe we do later on in the video. So both of these guys, Trevor Ariza and Jonathan Simmons, accepted their contract, which as you can see here, I'm having a hard time, you know, trying to figure out how to create the cap space, and it was very confusing because I'm trying to figure out, okay, if I renounce these guys' rights, that means I could let them go and they'll be off the books. But if I want to perform a cap hold, these guys, there'll be space for them on the team with the contract they wanted. So for some odd apparent reason, I made the cap space. Everything worked out fine. It was only one guy I could go with, Jonathan Simmons or Trevor Ariza, and I wanted to go with Jonathan Simmons because he was a bit younger, and I think he has a bit of a higher upside than Trevor Ariza. He could do a lot more than Trevor Ariza. So I went and signed Jonathan Simmons, but for some reason just did not have the cap to do it. I'm trying to renounce just about every player's right, but it didn't work out in the end. I'm gonna still try and get Jonathan Simmons during the NBA season, but we just have to see how that goes. And you can see here the second day of the moratorium period, we offered Jermichael Green a contract, as I believe we had a cap hole on him, so I really want to bring him back. I didn't expect during the regular NBA season, I didn't expect this guy back, but he played so good during the playoffs and towards the end of the season, it would have been a disservice of me to just let him walk. And another key pickup that we're trying to acquire here is Seth Curry. 75 overall, not asking for too much, but asking for a little bit more than Jonathan Simmons. He has a offer, 78 overall, excuse me. So as you can see here, you do not have enough room under the salary cap to sign Jonathan Simmons. You may only sign players for the amount of cap space you have remaining or for the whatever, blah blah blah. So basically in the end we couldn't sign Jonathan Simmons, and we ended up picking up Seth Curry, and I tried to renegotiate his contract again, but he was just not having it. I wish his interest level was high enough so I could use that pitch, but as you can see, it's not high enough. It was insufficient, and so we just had to walk away from that contract. Fortunately, we did not get Jonathan Simmons. He would have been a big piece to this team, but we're trying our best in the free agency. If the Grizzlies weren't so cap-struck, we would have been able to sign this guy. Another guy we had to bring back was Marshawn Brooks. I'm not seeing this guy name on the roster, so I had to check the free agent list in the shooting guards. And so we're going to bring back Marshawn Brooks. We don't really have a lot of money to deal with, and so any bit of help we could get or any bit of discount we could get, that is going to help us out greatly. And you can see here that it's kind of weird how 2K had it. It's like 2 contracts were accepted, a cap hold and something else, but we are paying Marshawn Brooks a bit more than what the cap hold entitled, but I'm fine with that. He stepped up when Michael Conley went down, and hopefully he can have the same production in this upcoming season. Moving on to the NBA Summer League. I played a couple games, but this dunk right here by Darek Novick was one of the main highlights and the only highlights of the Summer League. And the Memphis Grizzlies did end up winning the whole Summer League tournament, so I'm proud of the roster I put together. And after the free agency period is over, we are now going to take a look at all the team signings and recap. So if you guys want to slow the video down and look at all the teams recaps and re-signings and things like that, you definitely can, but I'm going to note out a couple of things. The Clippers had a huge free agency period, as well as the Los Angeles Lakers. They pick up Klay Thompson, so LeBron James have someone else to go with him. The Heat making a couple moves here, and it was another team that I'm forgetting about as the Hornets signed Jonathan Simmons. I wish he was still a free agent, but they're going to get a good player in Jonathan Simmons. So a lot of movement around the league this offseason, and I really like it. Kristaps Porzingis re-signs with the New York Knicks, and you can see that Klay Thompson, 4 years, $133 million. So another team that I was trying to remember was Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard decides to stay with the Toronto Raptors, and he wants to try and win another ring. And the Nets also signed D'Angelo Russell. Nuggets not really doing a lot. The Pacers, have a nice little team, as well as the New Orleans Pelicans, and we played them in our first game. And I'm not gonna record that video. I'm gonna record another game. As you can see here, Kawhi Leonard's name is not on the Raptors list, but he did resign with the Toronto Raptors. We also have the Suns making a bit of a move, signing Michael Beasley and Carmelo Anthony. Not too much changes for the defending Western Conference champions, the Oklahoma City Thunder, but Kevin Durant re-signs with the Golden State Warriors, but they lose out on Klay Thompson. So we're gonna see. It's gonna be very interesting to see how that Warriors team performed this season. Moving on to the All-Star City selection, and it will be in Houston, Texas, in the Rockets Arena. Moving on to the player training camps. Triple J is going to head to the perimeter shooting camp. Want to try and expand his range. His open shot three now is a 78, and if we could get that to 80 by next offseason, he's going to be a very hard guy to defend and stop. Marc Gasol goes to the athleticism camp. He's going to lose that athleticism just due to natural age, and he's going to start to regress soon, so I want to try and balance that out. Jakob Poeltl was another guy we sent to camp. Seth Curry heads to the athleticism camp as well, so having this guy on the team is going to be a great pickup for us. Marco Bellinelli, let's keep working on what he could do good, and that is perimeter shooting. His open shot three is a 81, and his open shot mid-range is now at 88, one of the highest in this league so far. Another camp we purchased for Chandler Parsons was Basketball 101. And you can see here we have a trade right before the season starts. We traded away Kyle Anderson for Jay Crowder and a 2021 second round Washington unprotected pick. This was a good trade for the Memphis Grizzlies in my opinion. I think we got a lot more than we should have entitled, but hey, I'm not gonna have no issues with it. So now we're back in the conference room. We got to get Marshawn Brooks back on the schedule, and for some reason I thought I signed him, but it didn't sign him, and now he's asking for a lot more money, but we just don't have it. And we're gonna use the mind trick pitch on him, and he accepts the offer. One of the perks of having a MyGM or playing MyGM, you have these badges and these, you know, a bit of a RPG playing a role game. So off season coming down to an end. We're gonna review the goals with Ben Parker. I think he's pretty pleased with the off season we've had, and I'm hoping we can get back to the Western Conference Finals and even into the NBA championship games. So Ben Parker, he wants at least 19 home wins, and I think that's very doable. I mean, we had a pretty good record in the tough Western Conference last season, and we should be able to pick right back up where we left off. But he wanted me to do something that I'm not too sure about. He wanted me to move Luke Babbitt or Marco Bellinelli. Luke Babbitt is an easier guy to move, but I have to see what I could get for him. But I can't move Marco Bellinelli. He is our backup shooting guard, and he's a guy who could really stretch the floor out when needed to be. So the promises we're going to make, it's going to be tough to keep them all. Some may be broken, some we may pass, but we have another goal of his. He wants us to sell out 32 home games, and I made a mistake. In the beginning of the new season, the ticket prices were still set to $200. So in our first game that we ever played, we had an attendance of 0. So we didn't even make any money. So I had to go back and change that to a regular price. So our ticket prices are about $50 now, about a 5% increase from last season. So attendance and the revenue we're getting from the tickets should be a lot better. But coming to the end of the video, Ben Parker is done discussing his off season or his regular season goal, and you can see here our schedules, and we have Mike Conley back finally. And so now looking at the coach game plan, we're gonna try and get our rosters the way we want it. It's still going to be looking the same. Michael Conley at the 2 guard to be Seth Curry, Jay Crowder at the 3, Triple J at the 4, and Marc Gasol at the 5. Dabanovic, the rookie small forward, should see some playing time guys later in the next video.